I'm your host, Johnny D, and with me on The Average Guys, as always, my co-host, Kenny K.
Johnny.
And behind the camera, wanting her attention and her due, is Kelly Donahue. Crazy Kelly, as she's affectionately known. And sitting right next to us, Denfeld great, four-sports athlete, former Kansas City Royal farmhand, Pat Bergquist. Pat's
going to... microphone here, Johnny.
I'll grab the microphone. But Pat just happened to come in the bar, saw us. We're down at Players Sports Bar right on 40th and Grant here. Without getting too specific, I guess. But anyway, Pat, thanks for coming on The Average Guys.
Hey, happy to be here. Nice to be back in the cold weather.
So now you're
Nice to be back in the cold weather.
Absolutely.
You enjoy it.
Born and raised, loved it. Out skating today with the kids.
All right.
Right now you're, flying 757s for UPS down in Louisville, Kentucky?
I've switched to the 747, but I am flying for UPS.
Seriously? That's what you're doing? Oh, my goodness. All right.
See, I grew up with Pat in the hood in the old days, and I remember he had this big cutout of a cockpit, and we'd have to sit in front of it, and he'd be showing me how to throttle down and how to land the thing and all the different, and it's sort of funny how...
Well, you know, John, we have to tell Pat about the time we were down at the Metrodome, and we witnessed Cal Ripken's 3,000th hit. And prior to the game, we had an interview with Jeff Conine, and I looked a little silly because I didn't know that you had already talked to Jeff Conine. And I had never met Pat until today. And you've always told me about Pat Bergquist, Kansas City Royals, and so on and so forth. And I didn't know the relationship or that Jeff Conine and Pat Bergquist did play together. Well, when I said, to Jeff Conine, do you remember Pat Bergquist? He was like, no. You already asked me that. And anyways, what can you tell us about Jeff Conine?
Jeff was drafted, I think, in the second round from UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. And he came, it was my second year. So when I showed up for spring training my second year, he was roommates with my previous year's roommates. So we talked a few times and had a few meals together, but other than that, we actually were on separate teams and in spring training. So saw him, knew enough to go out and share a beverage, and from him to memory from 1988 was probably a stretch. That would be for certain.
Well, I said when we were setting up the interview, I said, "Did you remember Pat Bergquist?" He's like, "No," and I didn't think of asking Kenny, so then we're interviewing him. In our interview styles, I mean, it's off the cuff because you don't know who you're going to get lined up. They just sort of happen, and first,
I chime in.
Then Kenny chimes in, and it's like,
remember Pat Bergquist? Yeah.
It's like, but he is a jerk deluxe, I mean.
No. I think he was a nice guy. He's pretty quiet from what I remember of him.
John abruptly ended the interview with him when he said, so growing up, what was your favorite, who did you idolize? He goes, well, I really didn't like baseball. I was more of a racquetball player. And then John was like, okay, well, Jeff Conine, thank you very much.
Wow. just the way he was so, I mean, who did he idolize, all this stuff, and all of a sudden he's just like...
baseball, he said. I was more into racquetball.
He's just a California guy.
Well,
you got to accept that. They're a little different anyway.
But here's a guy who's blessed with the natural ability to play baseball, and he's acting like it was an afterthought. That was my whole thing. I was into racquetball, and I'm like, oh... that's basically what I said. Oh, really? And it's like, well, and he didn't want to be on. It's just like he was doing us a favor. Call it like it is.
Yeah.
But then Kenny's the one.
Average guy.
Kenny's the one who calls David Ortiz Doug twice during the interview. So Doug, And,
yeah. Well.
But these guys need to be humbled at times. No, that's all. That's all pre-set up. So anyway, before we talk some Royals, you played baseball, football, hockey at Denfeld. I still believe you're the all-time leading rusher for the Hunters.
I don't know if that still holds, but it was nice to have a record for a while. It was fun. Some of the best memories I have are playing high school football and hockey and baseball. The friendships you make and the kids I remember when I come back to town, such as yourself, they last a lifetime. So I know a lot of kids from Denfeld watch your show. So I want you to cherish those moments when you get to play the sports or walk the halls of Denfeld or any other school in the city for that matter.
Right. Now, Denfeld has a Hall of Fame, don't they? They tried it a couple years ago. They had some...
I believe they do. I'm not a member, so maybe I wasn't as good as I thought.
Athlete. I'm kind of curious, what years you played hockey and who were some of the names that were on those teams you were on?
Let's see. I played with Rob my senior year. He was a sophomore, and his brother Pete... Jeff Sisto, Barry Methune, Al Sisto. I played as a ninth grader, so I also played with some Pat Fales and Mark Weiss, Jim Hansen, some of the West Duluth names. And A lot of different players. What
do you think of new public school stadium?
It's great. I have not witnessed a football game there yet because I live in Louisville, but my wife and I snuck out last summer when we made a trip up here and ran the field at 2 in the morning.
Really?
It was her idea. So we climbed the fence, took a few laps around the stadium, and had a good time.
Well, I mean, they were talking on the radio station. What were the biggest stories of this last year? The Lady Bulldogs winning the championship and so forth. And people were calling in thinking what the top stories were, Rick Rickert. But I thought the opening of public school stadium was just up there. I mean, it doesn't get the attention because it's a facility and not so much an individual or a team doing something big. But, I mean, you hear these schools down south that are coming up here now saying, wow, this is nice. This is one of the nicer stadiums north of Minneapolis. And, I mean, it gives you a community pride because old PSS was a dump at the end. I mean, not that it was in pristine conditions when you played, but...
Well, they always had a nice surface, but I think the aura, if you will, of public school stadium is where everyone can go on 6th Street, park their car, let the kids run. It's a family event when there's a football game at public school stadium. And I don't think you have that at a lot of facilities around the country. I know in Louisville, it's fenced in. So if you don't buy a ticket and go in, you don't get that throwing the Nerf football. I remember doing that with you out on 6th Street or down by Super Value and pretending like you're the athlete. I think a lot of people become good athletes with their imagination more so than their physical attributes. And I remember doing that. Remember we'd say, you were always a Miami Dolphin fan. Bob Greasy back to pass, but that's how you get good, looking at some of the superstars.
I never did get good, but thank you for those endorsements. But, I tried. So, anyway, then from Denfeld, you went to UMD.
That is correct.
You played under Scott Hanna.
Correct.
So, give us some memoirs about your UMD days.
Well, it started out, I think they wanted me to go to UMD for baseball, but it was Molosky, the football coach, that thought I'd pull me over to the football side once I get in for baseball. I did play spring ball one year and found out that they were playing for keeps at UMD. And if I was going to play college football, it was going to be at the Division I level or not at all. I mean, that's a big step from high school, even going to UMD. The speed of the game, the size of the players when you're 18 against someone 22. That wasn't in the cards for me. But baseball was fantastic. I didn't play much my freshman year. I ran the bases when they needed a pinch runner and got in a few games. And then someone had the idea of moving me to the outfield. And that really helped my career, and it was a wise move, I think, for the baseball team and for me.
Well, I mean, Scott Hanna, we don't hear a lot about UMD baseball. I mean, we really don't talk a lot about it, and that might be our fault, but what's Coach Hanna like? What was it like playing for him?
Well, he's a competitor. That's the best thing about playing for Scott Hanna. And surprisingly enough, there's a lot of things he taught me about baseball. You get the mentality or the picture that he might be for football only or a lineman, the old lineman mentality. He knows the baseball game real well, and he's intense. I mean, you're going to do it right after the first time, or you're going to hear about it, or you won't play. And there was many times when I was being scouted, and we'd play in the Metrodome, and there might be 25 people in the stands, 20 of which were scouts, monitoring my progress. And if I made a mistake, he wasn't going to coddle me and say, well, I know they're looking at you. He got in my face. He pulled me out of games. But yet he's very fair. I can't say enough good things about him. I still keep in contact with him today. I try to support the Bulldog Fund, and he sent me a UMD hockey jersey, which I probably shouldn't say on air because guys who graduate don't even get the jersey. But he's taken care of me, and I appreciate all he's done for me.
Well, then all of a sudden, I mean, the scouts start coming out. How did you get noticed? How did you get discovered?
I believe I was probably the 8th grade or 9th grade. I was playing American Legion baseball, and Ernie Canito was the coach. And we were at a tournament in St. Paul called the Augie Classic. Augsburg put it on. It was at the University of Minnesota, Siebert Field. And I was a shortstop, and I got lucky and had a couple decent games. And there happened to be a scout from the Royals there, and he kept saying, well, why don't you go to the outfield? You should go to the outfield. Well, when you're a young kid, you think the outfield's a bad place to play. You always get there. I don't want to play right field. I don't want to play left field. I want to be the shortstop. I want to be the pitcher. And I fought that off, but it was Scott Hanna who finally decided that I go to the outfield, and that is where the scouts wanted to see me all along. It was a long process, a lot of years of watching it, a lot of games. They'd show up in the strangest places, and I was umping games at Ordine for high school, and I'll never forget 5 scouts showed up the game, and I was behind home plate as the umpire, and I heard them say, "Hey, Pat," and between innings, and they said, "Hey, we stopped at your house. We just happened to be in town." And I'm thinking, well, guys from the Yankees, Angels, A's, and who's that team? The Royals don't just show up in Duluth, Minnesota. And I'm like, wow, well, that's interesting. They said, well, can you work out for us? And I said, well, I'm umping this game. Oh, yeah, after the game. I said, well, I don't have my gloves, I don't have shoes, and I don't have bats and balls. And they said, don't worry about it. So they'll find you wherever you are. And it was a long process, and some strange things happened along the way. It's really interesting, though.
I can believe
Probably
it.
tell you more than you want to know.
Tell us everything. Lay it on the line. But so all of a sudden, draft day approaches. All of a sudden, Conine in the second round, and there I was at Pat's house, and all of a sudden you showed me the draft selection, and there's your name, drafted by the Royals. I mean, what was it like getting drafted and showing up your first day at your rookie league team?
Well, the process of getting drafted it was scary, to say the least, because I kind of suspected I would. Phone calls leading up to the draft asking if I would sign if I got drafted and how much you would sign for and those kind of questions. And I wanted to tell them for free, but you don't really want to say that. Then you just...
Why did you want to say that? Or why would you think of saying that?
Because I just love the sport. Like your show, I'm an average guy, and I would have played baseball if they'd asked me to do it for free. And the day I got drafted, I remember I was at Irving Field. I didn't think I was going to get drafted. It got to be later in the day, and a friend of mine said, well, let's go throw the ball a little bit, and we'll stay in shape and hit some balls. And I remember my mom driving down there saying the Kansas City Royals just called, and you were taken in the 19th round. And I was shocked. I mean, I was scared at first.
What did your friend say?
He just hugged me. I was Danny Buttermer. You remember him, another West Duluth guy? And I was like, I couldn't even talk. I don't think about this too often, to be honest with you. It's really nice to talk about it, but I'll never forget that day.
So then you get on a plane, you're off to?
3 days later, Sarasota, Florida, rookie league ball, and I was probably one of the oldest guys on the team. Me and my roommate, Bobby Canet, who happens to live right across the river from Louisville. He went to a small college there, and we were playing with all 18, 19-year-olds from California, Florida, all the baseball hotbeds, Texas. And here we were, 21, 22, and they're calling us Grandpa. And it was a great experience. It was a big transition, switching to a wooden bat. At UMD, maybe you could hit 450 or 500 with aluminum bat and outrun some infield hits, and that step to the next level was just that much more difficult, and everyone could throw and everyone could hit and everyone could run. It was definitely a higher level of baseball.
Well, now, you had the chance to be in the same locker rooms as like Bo Jackson and...
My second year, when you go to spring training, I did get an opportunity to play one split squad game, so I got to meet quite a few of the guys and play catch with Mark Thurman. And he never really made it to the big leagues. He had a brother, Gary, who did make it to the big leagues. They were both in the Royal system. And Bo was in left, and Willie Wilson was being transitioned from center to left at the time. I don't know if you recall that, 1988. And to go to the same locker room with them and enjoy a sud after a game was an interesting experience. Very interesting.
No, Pat, you're saying that so you got to bat against Joe Hesketh, who was a good pitcher with the Expos, but arm troubles curtailed his career. But he got to bat against, was it Mario Soto? And I had a printed shirt on, and Pat said that in the big league levels, to be like Mario Soto, if he needed to hit a certain pattern on your shirt, he was that skilled where he could actually hit it. I mean,
that is correct. Joey Hesketh, all the big league pitchers, when you see them hit somebody, other than if it's a wet baseball, they were trying to hit somebody. Maybe they got a tad inside, but if you see someone throw head high under the chin, they can hit that target. Yes, he can hit the A on your Buccaneers shirt as well as that star on the national NFC emblem. They are that good. And with a curveball, changeup, or fastball.
I'm kind of curious about George Brett. I mean, obviously he was playing then.
Winding it down, but still a fantastic player. Very nice guy. You see him in the clubhouse, you know, he would talk to anybody. It wouldn't matter if you were like me, a nobody, or if you were Bo Jackson. Everyone was the same. As much as he was nice to the media, I don't think he enjoyed the media. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but just a real down-to-earth guy and looking out for everybody. He always looked out for everybody. He would be a team captain no matter where he went.
Wow. So then you go through your playing days. What made you decide to get out?
Well, just realizing it was a business, realizing that my skill level, had I known expansion come along, I'll go out on a limb here and say maybe I should have stayed, but I never looked back on that. I just thought my skill level at best would have made me a utility big league player at best, and you need a lot of breaks for that to happen. I've seen a lot of guys in the minors stay until they're 33, 35, hoping for that chance. And for everyone that does that, there's so many that don't, and then you're behind in what you want to do with your life. And it worked out where they were going to pay for the rest of my college and had some money left to pursue a flying career and help from my parents. So it just was the right time. I didn't see. I felt I was playing better than some people, and they were signed in the first round for $2 million and $1.8 million, and they weren't going to get a guy from Duluth at 19th round for, you know.
So if somebody gets caught shoplifting and they're not from this country, they get sent home and slapped on the wrist, but then they're invited to come back and take your job again.
That's right. There was, I'm having, not Benitez, but.
Juan Benitez?
Juan Benitez. Thanks for this.
I remember when he told me all this.
We had a guy that his son played for us, and he did get in a little bit of trouble, and he went home, and then because he had the big league blood, if you will, they think he can make it to the big leagues if your daddy made it. So he was invited back the following year, and they kind of forget about that. But I've never seen him in the big leagues, so I guess he the end of his road came as well. But there's some exceptions made, and like in most things in life, you got to keep trying and just hope things shake out how they're supposed to. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't in the big leagues, but
you got the memories.
Oh, I have the memories and have some pictures and some balls and bats, and they buy me a cup of coffee every once in a while or get me on the average guys. But other than that, I mean, it's just it's a great memory, and happy doing what I'm doing now. I have a great wife, 2 kids, flying airplanes. They're paying me to do that too. Another thing I'd do for free, but we won't tell UPS that.
But I mean, me and Kenny, we've been on this talk about contractions of the Twins and the Expos. You see baseball back in '88, it was a different era. What do you think of the game of baseball now?
Well, you don't need to be a former player to see that the pitching is terrible. There's fifth starters that wouldn't be in the big leagues. There's middle relievers that wouldn't be in the big leagues. And there's one at every position that wouldn't be in the big leagues. I'm not a fan of contraction now that they've done what they've done, because I think it will now take away from the records that were just produced over the last 10 years. The home run record, you can say the balls juice, you can say this. Well, I think it's just due to bad pitching. And like I said before, even what we would consider a bad big league pitcher still is a pretty good pitcher for the 3 of us. But if you were to go up and hit off him, but gosh, you throw a mistake to Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, you name the person, and it's going to go over the fence.
Well,
and if you do it 73 times this year, there's a lot of mistakes in there.
See, the fields now they've shrunk the stadiums, they're smaller. And some people think that Barry legitimately got the record, which he did hit 73, but they shrunk the strike zone where if you get a young pitcher, like you say, a fifth starter who shouldn't be in the big leagues, and he can't get his breaking stuff over the plate, all of a sudden he's going to have to groove a fastball, and there's Barry just waiting for it, and bam, it's gone. So are you impressed with these 73 home runs and these 160 RBI seasons?
I'm not as impressed, but I'm not... You got to remember the players are a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger now, too. I'll still say that. The bats are different. The bats, some of the wood they make now, I know Barry Bonds gets his made in Canada. And there's a new bat factory. I'm not sure the name, but everyone's handcrafted. And it might as well be an aluminum bat. So you have to take all of it into consideration. It's just like the old Tiger Woods thing. Well, if Jack Nicklaus had these clubs, Yeah, he might have won a few more tournaments. You know, he'd have piled on some more records. But the players who are good now would be good then. But you're still going to get the little extra oomph. You know, instead of, was it 61, right, Maris? Okay, so 73. There's your little extra oomph, you know, an extra 12. And that's what the equipment and the crummy pitching does for you.
Well, as we wrap this up, because you have a hockey game to get to, let's talk about a man we call on our show as Zim, your first coach, Ron Donahue.
Oh, Ron Donahue. And you know, when I saw you tonight, I was going to say, the older you get, the more you look like him. And that's an honor. He was a great coach. He knew a lot about baseball. You know, a lot of times you don't respect or realize how much someone knows until you don't have him as a coach or until you've played at a higher level and realize, wow, he really did know his stuff. I know he used to get in your face a lot. And he was also the king, the wiffle ball king. He'd have the field set up in his yard for us and hot box, and he knew all the right way to touch home plate with the left foot, and he had it all down. I'd really like to see him again. It's been a long time.
Well, I tell you what, Pat, we know you probably want to get a frosty mug here before you take off for the game, but thanks for sitting down and spending a few minutes with us. And, so
I really enjoyed it.
If you're back in the neighborhood, stop on down and reminisce some more stories about the old days. Okay, well.
Pat Bergquist, yeah, I'm wondering if you've run into Muhammad Ali in and around the Louisville area.
No, he lives in Michigan. He doesn't even live in Louisville. He does. Actually, I get my uniforms at a store in Louisville for UPS, and it's on Muhammad Ali Boulevard. But that's as close as I've been to anything.
But hey, you're a Notre Dame fan.
I am a Notre Dame fan.
Tyrone Willingham, good hire?
I think so. I think if you can bring someone into Stanford who's a good athlete and a student, and maybe we should put it differently, student-athlete, you should be able to do that at Notre Dame. And I know the coach they had this year made a big mistake in saying it was his best team ever and then rips a 5-6. So I think he's got the experience to do that job. And I'm not a big Denny Green fan. It sounds like he's going down next week, and Ty's kind of one of his cronies. But they say he's a great coach, so we'll just have to see.
Why, there's talk about Denny Green being gone after next week?
The report's out now that unless Red McComb trained...
of ESPN has reported that Denny Green will be fired after the Baltimore Raven game.
That's correct.
And Red's number one choice on his list, the top of the list is, what's the name of that? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tony Dungy.
I believe it.
Red, take Tony. As much as I'm a Buccaneer fan, Tony.
What a horrible choice.
The Vikings can go back to no offense, Jim Molosky offense. I mean, the Buccaneers. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But okay, on that note, Kelly, fade to black.
No, we're just going to turn off the camera.
Oh, just turn off the camera, and we'll be back in just one.